How you doing? Hey, what's going on? Ronin man here. Hey, today I want to talk about why you shouldn't get married. And one of the biggest reasons is the poor quality of the services that you will be provided. Right? So, guys, you're giving up a lot of freedom if you do. If somebody guy gets married, he's giving up tons and tons of freedom, right? But what does he get in return? What is the payoff, right? One of the big, supposed payoffs is that she's going to cook for you. Right now, for me, a woman cooking for me, for most women, is actually like something I actively avoid because I've been with so many women. I know how bad most of them are at cooking. They could be lovable in other ways, but just cooking wise, most women are terrible, terrible cooks, right? And I'm going to go through some reasons why, and let's explain ourselves here. If you look, on the outside, let's look at the peak of cooking, right? Obviously, it's been talked about many times, but in cooking, if you look at 5-star Michelin chefs, right? Michelin chefs, how many Michelin chefs are men and women? You'll see that I think there's very, very few. I don't know the exact numbers I read online, but I don't want to give an exact number, but it's like really, really bad. Okay, so women basically are not Michelin chefs, right? Now, you could say, this is a rating system. It could be biased. It's possible. I've eaten at a lot of Michelin chef restaurants, and I think they're really good. So I would tend to think that they actually know what they're talking about. But let's just say, for example, that it's not completely reliable. No system is, especially run by human beings, right? So we don't see a lot of women on top of the profession, right? And you don't see, let's talk about wives in particular and eating and, why do guys get married? Okay, what are the key parts of marriage? Okay, so there would be, one of them would be sex, right? The other one would be eating. Like, what is a relationship? Like, what do you do every day? Like, what is fucking life, right? This is basic things, right? So sex, eating, right? Sleeping, money. These days, before on the savannah, we didn't have money, but now money is a big thing, right? In modern life, right? So let's say we got eating, sleeping, sex. What's the one more big one? But these are the things that when you get married, these are, some of the biggest things that you're going to, when you invite someone in your life, which is what you're doing with a wife, right? Is you are, I don't know, I think so many guys are so fucking inexperienced with women that they see women as these kind of like, almost like not perfect creatures, but like somehow, maybe it's a hangover from their mothers or something, and I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean, like, a female figure in your life could be your mother, right? So obviously is your mother, and in most cases, right? So that when you decide to get married, you think, well, my mom can cook, right? Well, I interviewed actually a woman who's an excellent cook. She's really good. I asked her, she's 76 years old, and I asked her, how did you learn how to cook? And she said that when she was 6 years old, her mother had died, and her father basically said they lived in a very remote place. And I mean, this woman really can cook, like any kind of food. She's like so creative. I mean, she can make something with nothing, and she can also make like a full on, like a Michelin type of meal, like really, really high quality. She can make Iranian food, French food, Japanese food. You know what I mean? This woman can really cook, right? So very rare per individual. So that's why I asked her, and I said, how did you learn how to cook? I just, thought, hey. And she said, well, actually, because when I was 6 years old, my mother died, so I had to cook. And my father said, make something in the kitchen. So she went over to look in the refrigerator and the shelves. They lived in a very, very remote place in Canada. And, basically her nearest neighbor was like miles away, right? So she looked in the kitchen and there was like bread and ketchup and a couple other things, right? So she had to make a meal with that, right? And so, obviously it wasn't the greatest meal, the first meal, right? But now 70 years later, so 76, 6 years old, 70 years later, she's really, really good cook. So not only has she focused on it. She really focused. She's very disciplined, right? And she focused on it. And she, her house is just full of cookbooks. If you go to her house, just absolutely like, just cookbooks is, if you ever want to make her happy, like you just have to buy her a cookbook. Like she is going to use it, especially if it's it has to be a good cookbook, right? Something unique or special. So to this day, she still studies, right? So it's taken her 70 years to get to the level of cooking that she's at. So don't expect, some 19-year-old woman to be able to cook because they can't cook. Women can't cook. This is the fucking facts, guys. They can't fucking cook. Get over it. It's the fucking truth. And if you have a lot of girls and you let them cook for you, here's the thing is after a girl fucks you, right? You're very relaxed and happy. So almost anything she makes is like wonderful, right? But what if you dig deeper? Okay, this is the experience. This right now is the benefit of having experience with many women, because I would sit there. I remember a girl would come over, we'd have sex, and then she'd come over with like a bag of food, right? And she was a bunch of stuff. And then she was going to cook some food for me, right? So she'd come over, she'd have all these special ingredients, and then she would go in the kitchen and she would cook something. She would come out, she'd bring it to me, and it was good, right? And I was like, whoa, this is good. This is nice. I didn't say that. Of course, I was super happy, right? I was like, whoa, this is awesome. She's awesome. Sex was great. The food is good. I'm so happy. Smile, smile, smile. But, over the years, it was overwhelming. And also, because I was a really young guy, that sex blew me away, and I was just in bliss for like hours afterwards, right? But over the years, I started to look more critically at what was happening. And what I realized was, and I would actually get to know, obviously over the years, you get to know the women and you find out what's really going on. And especially as, for myself, like a lot of women, I don't know, they see me as somebody, I guess they trust in a way, because I'm kind of I've always been, in a sense, I've always been a player. So they kind of see me as a unique person that they can kind of like share stuff with that's not socially acceptable. So I get a lot of my good information actually from women, because they're like, I can tell this guy something, right? He's not going to judge me, right? I don't judge women, right? And so in that sense, I get, they're more free with sharing information, right? Because I'm not going to say, oh, you're a slut or, whatever. But they start to tell me, and they'll say, well, when we first met, I made that omelet, and they'll say, well, I read in a magazine that it said, if you make this particular food, the guy's going to think you're a great cook. And I'd be like, yeah, I remember that. Like I'd say, it's 10 years ago, whatever. It'd be like, yeah, I remember that. That's exactly what I thought when you made that omelet. And she'd say, well, that was the only thing I could make. I couldn't make anything else. Like there was nothing else I was capable of making. I could boil an egg, I could make tea, I could make coffee, and I could make that omelet. And that's it. Except for maybe oatmeal, and that was the only thing, because I was trying to make you happy. So I read this magazine and I bought all these complex stuff, all these different ingredients, and spent a fortune and came over and made that omelet for you. And it so got me thinking these kind of stories. And I realized that it's what you are presented as a man by the woman. It's very easy to kind of generalize that, it's easy to be fooled. Okay. It's very, very easy to be fooled, because the woman is going to present, something to you. And it's almost like not cool to ask questions. It's kind of like, thank you very much kind of thing, right? But the thing is when you're talking about living with somebody or marriage long term, you have the right to know the truth about it, right? So, but society doesn't allow you to do that. So much like, let's put it the other way around. Let's say that a guy, has a rented Lamborghini, right? And he takes her out on a meal, and, takes her out for a date, and everything goes great. And then, but before she marries him, she has the right to know that that's not his car, right? That the guy's broke as fuck, right? That he spent his salary renting that car that night and taking her to dinner, right? She has the right to know that, right? Don't think anybody would disagree with that. I think you have the right as a man to know how shitty girls are at cooking, because if you don't know that, you're really like going down a bad road. Because I can tell you this, okay, let's not even talk about my girlfriends. Let's talk about something else. I once was in a position that I was able to see 1,000 housekeepers, right, and manage 1,000 housekeepers. So I got to send them to houses, and they would go and do, cook food, and they would clean house and this and that. And so I managed the situation for a bunch of reasons. And so what happened was the customers would tell me what they wanted. They wanted a maid for this and that, and they would ask me really like clearly, like, can she cook this? Can she cook that? And it was basically there was two kind of clients that we had. And one of them was a client who didn't know anything about maids. So it was their very first maid. So they would say, they would interview her, and as long as she was friendly and she dressed pretty nice, around the house, they would be like, oh, she's like a perfect maid, But the experienced families, they knew that there was a huge, huge difference in the quality of services the maid provides. So the experienced people, what they would say is, can she cook this particular meal, right? Can she make sukiyaki? Can she make, some certain French dish, right? Can she make this? Can she make that? They would very specifically have her list what she's capable of making, right? And then they would say the same thing with, they would be very specific about with children. So an inexperienced couple, when they order a maid, they'll say something like, oh, they bring her over, and they would like let her play with the kids, and the kids would like her. They'd say, oh, she's perfect. The kids love her, right? But the experienced couples, they knew from hard experience that finding a good maid is really difficult. So, and here's the funny thing. The funny thing is that women, the guys tended to be on the side of, hey, whatever, just let her come over, she'll figure it out, right? Women were not. Women were very specific, and they were always like very hard ass on these wives, on these maids. And the reason why they were, I think, now looking back, I think the reason why they were so hard ass is because they knew their own ineptness, and they knew what they couldn't do, and they knew how difficult it was to do all these things, right? They knew that it wasn't easy to be a good cook, right? So just like that woman who took 70 years to become a good cook, right? It takes a long time. It's not just time. It's like discipline and desire and fortitude, like to become good at something, to become great at something, right? It's not even just that. Sometimes it's even just situational. So for example, if Usain Bolt grew up in New York and he was downtown in all the happening areas, would he be such a great runner that he is today? Would he have run, because I read a lot of his biography, till his feet were bloody, if he was sitting in like downtown Manhattan? Or was it partly because he was in Jamaica, in not such a wealthy place where he didn't have so much and he had to make do, and he just dreamed of fucking doing it, being a superstar, and the motivation and anger and frustration and everything looking around him, that all motivated him to become great, right? It wasn't just luck, and it just wasn't just natural skill. That guy trained like a motherfucker, right? So it's the same thing with cooking. Cooking, to become good at cooking is no joke. If you've ever taken cooking classes or really learned how to cook, you really appreciate a good restaurant after that, because you're like, holy moly, this is not easy, right? It's like the more you know, right? And so it's like you appreciate things, right? So appreciating good food is on the other side of it is spotting shoddiness, right? So it's like you can't have one without the other, right? You start to see, oh, okay, this is not good, that is good, right? So let's look at it that way. It's not putting people down. It's actually having a brain, and being able to differentiate between poor and good, right? So let's say here in this article, I looked around for what guys' wives cooking abilities and stuff, right? So basically, they're saying that in this one here is men who skip meals at home because wives are bad cooks, right? So there's so many situations where guys are basically, they're avoiding talking about it. Even they just go out and eat, and they just kind of like avoid. They don't want to really talk about it. They have to bring in male privilege and all this stuff in any of these articles is very interesting when you search stuff, right? I'll give you an example. Here's what I searched to start with. I searched wives provide shoddy service in food, sex, and financial intelligence, right? And it was interesting because when I search everything before I make videos, okay, before I make a video, I try to find the facts, I try to find the statistics, I try to find if anybody wrote about this before. And what's very interesting is that usually a Ronin Man podcast, when I search for what I'm, just to get backup and facts, it's not even written on the internet. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't exist. Let's look at this. Wives provide shoddy service in food, sex, financial intelligence. I tried searching many ways, by the way. This wasn't like, I didn't try to outsmart Google or, trick it. I just basically, that's what I think. I think most wives provide very poor services for guys. And it's a total joke, actually. And they don't even try. And there's many reasons we'll talk about in this podcast, right? So here's what we get. Same-sex couples weigh financial pros, cons, the European external action, intelligence about food and drinks, trafficking, young women. Yeah, trafficking women. They're trying to find out something about women, and you find out about guys, about trafficking, right? Same-sex marriage in court, same-sex, straight women and gay husbands, Uber's background checks, Rwanda, human rights practices, statistics don't back up claims of rape culture. So this is what I get back when I search. A very basic thing, which every guy knows, that women, that every woman's not a fucking genius, right? So every wife because the thing is here's the thing, is a guy gives up a lot to get married, okay? He gives up a lot of freedom. He gives up, a future of working hard to provide money for the family. There's a lot of things he gives up, but what does he get? And somehow it's not cool to ask that. It's like, oh, you can't ask that. You can't judge a woman cooking. She's too busy, right? It's like, yes, you can. The reason why you can is because you don't have to get fucking married. That's what MGTOW is all about. If it's shitty service, why would you even think about getting married? If she's not good in sex, I've talked about that before in the pussy episode. Most women never study. They don't learn anything. They don't know how to give a really, a pro hand job when they're sick. They don't know how to give a super good blow. They don't know. It's just like shit they've done since they're 17. And as they get, uglier and older, it gets worse and worse, right? It gets, they just repeat the same thing. They're not learning anything about sex. Women do not make a big study of sex before they get married. They just want to know the basics, right? Financial intelligence, saving money, dollar cost averaging, important stuff for your future, right? So let's look at what women study, okay, before they get married, right? So here's an article. First thing is, okay, when I started to search for today is what women study before they get married, there was this was fucking interesting. You can search it yourself. There was like nothing available from the Western media. Pretty much. Like there was pretty much nothing. You had to go into some kind of niche. You had to go into like a lot of the links here are from Africa and they're from India, right? And because they just didn't have anything. There was just like, what does a woman have to do before she gets married? It's nothing. She has a vagina. She just has to be a woman. And she's like wonderful, right? In the old days, women studied to become a wife and they learned a little bit how to cook. They had classes. It was a preparation. What did they call that? Home ec. In high school, when I was in high school, I graduated, a long time ago. They had a home ec class and women learned how to cook. There were certain things they taught women. And we were forced to take the class too, my generation. But before that, it was all women in that class, right? So there was something that in society would give women a leg up, but those things were long gone, right? So not only is the class gone, but the concept is gone. No women, basically, all they do is try to get the guy to marry them. They don't really do anything to prepare, right? So here's in the West, right? And even let's look at this other one here. So this is preparing for being a wife. So here's what they say: develop an intimate relationship with God. Okay, that's the other thing. Is every site that I found was either overseas, it was either like India, Africa, right, or it was religious. So those were the three types of like preparing to be a wife sites where they actually gave information, right? But let's look at the quality. It's good they're doing this, okay? It's very good. It's great. We're glad. It's awesome. If women are going to get married, they should prepare as seriously as a guy prepares to be a doctor, an astrophysicist, or whatever he does, right? They should prepare because this is now one of their careers, and they should, if they care about this, they should learn, right? So let's see what they recommend here. Develop intimate relation with God. Okay, like I said, it's a Christian site. Develop a master the art of fidelity and trust. Okay, now there's a paragraph there for you. Master the art of fidelity and trust. Now, how many sentences are there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sentences, right? You're going to learn. This is what the woman is preparing. There's not much out there, you guys. This is it. Okay, there's 5 sentences. Master the art of fidelity and trust. Learn to be 100% committed prior to a serious courtship. What does that mean? Be happy with what God has blessed you with and cultivate your relationship. How? It is important to be a woman of your word. If you promise something, be sure to do it. So that is all the training she gets for being fidel, not cheating and trusting the guy. Now, there's a lot more I can think of, but this is like basically, at least they're trying. These are absolutely pathetic attempts to half-ass give the girl something so at least she can, kind of like that omelet, right? The girl made the omelet for me. And there's nothing wrong with this girl. She was awesome, right? But she that's all she could cook, right? So they're giving them something so they can at least prepare, and they have something to show the guy, hey, I can make an omelet. Hey, I can have sex. Hey, I can do this. Hey, I can do that. And the guy's like, oh, if she can do that, she can probably do this, which is all not true. It's a front, right? It's a total front. She hasn't really studied. She hasn't developed herself. She doesn't really care. You can tell from these links. When you read a man's link about how to be good at something, it's fucking deep, man. There's like links, there's like annotations, there's like, all kinds of videos and like it's like deep. You get into the statistics of things and, all this kind of stuff. None of this is here. This is just bland, average, develop, it's not even, there's no, what do you call it? Like there's no system to analyze. They're not analyzing wives. They're not researching. They're not interviewing thousands or tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of wives and finding out. They're not doing any kind of research. They're not, if they did research, they would just ask the women what they think, right? That's kind of like asking a guy what he eats every day, right? And he doesn't even remember, and he's like going to tell you he's going to lie because if he's overweight, he's going to forget about that, the 6th beer he had last night. He's going to just kind of like asking people is different than finding out, like having hidden cameras, the laboratory tests, checking the food, keeping statistics like she made spaghetti this day, she made spaghetti this day, she made spaghetti this day. Inside the spaghetti on Tuesday was this, inside on Saturday was that. No, it's just she's going to make the same shit. She's going to make the same boring shit. She's going to have very limited skills because this is her preparation. This is all there is. And I can venture to say that most women don't even go this far. They just get like a half-ass, lecture from their mom, right? So let's get down to number 4, learn how to cook. My mother once told me that a woman that cannot cook is not cute. Okay, we know men like to eat. Let's be serious here. We all need to eat to live. Okay, now they haven't said anything about how to cook yet. Eating out all the time can become expensive and who doesn't love a home-cooked meal from time to time? From time to time. Interesting. So when a guy gets married, does he think that she's going to make a meal from time to time? Is that what he thinks? Is that what you think? Is that what you thought before you got, married and divorced, became MGTOW? That her preparation for, serving you, for being your wife, okay? Just like you serve her as a husband, okay? That's what I'm not saying, what I mean? We all serve, like any real estate agent will say, I serve this type of client, right? It's just things of service you do for somebody, right? It's not like the old days of being a slave. I'm just talking about you serve, right? So what does she serve? Okay, let's go here. If you cannot do anything beyond boil water, invest in a cookbook. So this is the advice, right? Think about this. Think how pathetic this is. If you cannot do anything beyond boil water, this is women talking to women. Okay, so If you can do anything beyond boiling water, like if you can, let's say you can make scrambled eggs or a couple of things, you can just ignore this because basically you're fine, right? But if you can't do anything, if you can't do fuck all, if you're completely lame and have no skills at all, you need to buy a cookbook, right? Right? There you go. Buy a cookbook, okay? And try one new meal a week, right? Basically, you're coming with boiling water. Like, even the logic doesn't make any sense, right? If you can only boil water, how can you make meals 6 days a week? If you're only going to do one new one, how do you make the other 6 if you can't cook except boil water, right? So it's basically what she's saying is like, you're going to eat out, back to the time to time thing. So you're going to go out, she's going to order out, she's going to get Chinese takeout, she's going to take you out, she's going to go to Whole Foods, waste your money on stuff there. She's going to do, and then she's going to try to make one new meal a week, right? While you're busting your ass at work, getting that project done under budget, and you're making sure that, everybody you're managing, you're out there busting your complex ass in a very difficult situation with the knives out from your competitors. And her job is to make one new meal a week. Okay, now, fuck. I mean, I just can't even dude, that is so embarrassing. And I want to go deeper into this too. Okay, look, there's 2 parts of being healthy. This is my opinion. Okay, this is not, I couldn't even find a link on this because this is Ronin Man here. But I personally, now I grew up in a home with excellent food. Okay, that's partly why I'm in good shape now. I grew up in a very healthy home as far as food goes. It was fucking awesome, right? And that really was a huge advantage to me because we had a lot of good food. We were in an area with a lot of healthy, fresh vegetables, and I was in an environment where I ate a lot of homemade food, right? So I was quite lucky. I was very, very lucky. But what I learned, and also I did quite well in my life. At different points, I've been very wealthy. So in that period, I was able to eat some of the best food, and some of the people in my family did a lot better even than me. So I was able to be around good food. I know good food. I've been all over the world. And so I've eaten so many great restaurants, and it's just, I'm not a snob at all. I can't even and I'll tell you why. Because what I found is through all that, having all that great food, eating all those either famous chefs or famous places or famous dishes, traveling the world, reading the food section and going and visiting, getting reservations, doing the hard work that it takes to get the good food, right? I've done that. And what I learned from that is that, for me, and this is just me, is that there is great food out there, okay? But in a sense, I turned my back on good food. And this is something that is probably counterintuitive. But I realized for myself that the quality of the food, the taste, is not that important to me. Believe it or not. The number one thing for me is I'm like a car. And so I have to give the car the highest quality food, or like a rocket. Maybe I'm more like a rocket. And if you put any bullshit in that fuel, the rocket could explode, it could crash, it could not get to the atmosphere that it's trying to get to, right? So in order for me to perform as a person, to sleep well, to eat well, to be good at this, to have the energy as I get older, it's very, very, I consider the quality of the taste of the food is very, very low on my scale. Although, let's be straight, I fucking love it. So when I taste a great meal, I'm just, if it's healthy and also great, what a combo. That's one thing about Thailand. The food is very good here. And, recently a friend visited, we went to some really nice restaurants, and it was like a real treat for me to be eating food that was not only healthy, but creative, just full of life and seasonal and everything that you get when you get really excellent food. But I know that is so hard to get and so difficult because, it takes a long time to make good food, right? So for example, even a great chef, in any country where they have, in the US, you probably don't even aware of this, but in most countries, restaurants are closed in the afternoon, right? They're not open for breakfast, and they're not open in the afternoon. And they close usually about 2 o'clock, and they usually open about 6 o'clock. And the reason why is because the chef is preparing dinner. So they prepare lunch, right? And then they really prepare dinner, right? So the chefs in a Japanese, for example, sushi shop, they might start shopping for fish as early as 4 or 5 in the morning. They go down to Tsukiji. They look at all the fish's eyes. They can look. A Japanese sushi chef can look at the fish's eye and know immediately how good that fish is. They can just look at the eye and they know that fish, how fresh it is, how good it is, and they bid on it. They get it, and then they take it back to their restaurant, right? And so they're up, like I'd say, very early, and that's why a sushi chef in the afternoon, you'll find them. They prepare dinner, but then you'll also see them sleeping behind the bar there, where no one can see them. They'll have the door locked too, but if you ever get in there, you'll see the sushi chef. He kind of sleeps inside the restaurant also because even between things that he's doing, because he doesn't get much sleep at night. So he wakes up so early, and then also he dinner goes on until say 10 or 11 o'clock at say a top sushi place, right, in Japan, in Tokyo, and then he has to clean everything. So often he's there till 2-3 in the morning, right, and he's like bleaching the floors and doing all the things he does. And preparing, and then the next day he's up at 5 o'clock, so he needs to get sleep. So you see him sleeping in the afternoon, you see him sleeping in the morning. He just gets sleep whenever he can, and that's why sushi chefs are not a popular job, because it's just so goddamn hard to cook good. It's really freaking hard, you guys. So I'm not blaming the women. I'm not saying but I'm just saying you as a MGTOW, right? You're trying to decide how to invest your life. So do you want to invest? Cooking is difficult. It requires not just hard study, but it also requires daily discipline and almost like ruining your health patterns to really be good at cooking. That is the truth. It's one of the worst jobs. If any top chef, it's like they'll be like, this is not a great way to make money. They'll try to get their son into being a doctor or programmer or something. And artificial intelligence. You're going to try to get him into something else, because being a chef is like a really brutal, tough job. And there are benefits, and it's awesome. I'm glad people do it. Very, very glad. But do any of these things ring true with the average millennial woman in North America? Do any of these discipline, study, you know what I mean? Like, not just discipline with studying, but discipline with trying things, and creativity. You have to try all new things all the time. You have to try new ingredients, new flavors. Even like a good chef will, every meal is seasonal, right? Based on the vegetables that are the freshest of that season, right? So the reason why is not just to change, it's because seasonal things are healthier. They have more vitamins, right? They're fresher, right? So there is a big benefit to seasonal things. And if you go to any top Japanese restaurant, you'll see in Japan, right? Not there is basically hardly any top ones outside Japan, but in Tokyo, if you go to a top restaurant, you'll see they're very seasonal. They won't brag about it. You'll look and you can say, hey, what is this here? And she'll say, oh, that's so and so. This season we put that in there, and it's like they really are serious about it, right? And then look behind the counter, see who's cooking. It's a guy, right? So that there's this thing, you can't totally blame it on women, but as a guy, you have to understand what you're getting into, right? The fuck are you getting into with marriage, right? What is going to happen? Okay, so let's go back to my thing about food is rocket fuel. Okay, so cooking is not the main thing for me, right? It's health. So I'm looking at what are the vitamins that I need to be healthy, because I know that restaurants, even if I was, let's say that I have $1 billion to spend on food, and I could just eat anywhere I wanted at any time, the food's not fucking available. Because if you want the best food, who's also the most healthy and fits, it's not just a good chef, it's a creative chef, but it's not just that. It's a chef who studies vitamins and health for different ages, and a guy who's 50 needs different things in his food than a guy who's 20, right? If a chef really knows all this stuff, and they don't even teach this in cooking school, this is like more like bodybuilders get into this, and they're going to get into exactly what they need to grow their muscles at a certain age, right? And for me, a real chef, a real cook can not only do, the deep, different kinds of cooking, creative, every season, understanding, how things mix together and all that, and having that kind of like that just gumption to try new things and push new things, because monotony is the worst thing with food, because your body needs variety, right? So that's one of the problems with good chefs. They only know, a lot of good chefs, they're good, but they only know a limited amount of dishes, right? They're French chefs, right? They're Japanese chefs. They only know that. They don't know the large variety of Indian food, and they can't make Iranian food. They can't make Israeli food, right? They can't make Mongolian barbecue. They can't do all these other things, right? That's how you get the variety in your body, right? You need that, right? That variety. So obviously, it's always derided, but eating out and getting your own shit is like a huge benefit when it comes to health. So if you're going to marry a woman and she can't cook, like, you have to get in deep right away with her and find out if she can actually cook. And you're going to find out, inevitably, you're going to find out that she cannot cook. It's all a front. And she doesn't even, and this is where you have to be very politically careful, is you're going to realize that she doesn't care, right? And you don't want to put that in her face. Like I said, there's no reason to put down women. I think a lot of people misunderstand my podcast sometimes, is you're trying to find the truth almost like a fucking spy, okay? When you find something out, you don't just blurt it out and tell everybody, right? This is for your own enrichment, okay? You're not out there to hurt people. You don't want to make a woman can't cook and has no interest in cooking and she wants to be a wife. There's no reason to put her down. You're just finding out the situation so that you make the right decisions in your life, right? If your best friend is marrying her, then you might tell him, right? But, being smart with women, getting a good deal in life doesn't mean putting in people's faces. In fact, not putting in people's faces is much, much smarter, right? And finding out the situation so you make the right decisions for yourself, right? What is the benefit of putting down people? There's no benefit of telling a girl that she cannot cook. Look at this picture on the thing, if you just tell her, you cannot cook, it's all a front, that's why I won't marry you. Why would you do that? No, you realize she can't cook. You realize that she doesn't know anything about health. She doesn't know anything about variety. That she doesn't have any interest. And that she's just going to read some article like this, with one paragraph. And then she's going to buy one cookbook. And she's going to try one thing a week. And then you have to think, is that what I want? Right? And she's going to do the same thing with sex. And the same thing with financial decisions. Right? She's going to read one paragraph. She's going to, she's going to talk to her mom. What is that? The way I look at it is like this, is, okay, teaching is a good example. Okay, there's a lot of shitty teachers in the world. Okay, they're teaching in small schools and classrooms all over the world, from kindergarten to university, right? But what's happening today is, as the world becomes more competitive and more global, is you're seeing online courses that are very high quality from MIT, Oxford, Cambridge. You're seeing the best professors, or some of the best, providing an excellent lecture online. And what happens, that's kind of demasking or uncovering the fact that most teachers are lazy. They're not really top. They're just like filling in a role. There's a small community. They need like a English teacher. And so, so-and-so becomes an English teacher. And in fact, most teachers, it's even worse than that, is they basically get to school and the school says, hey, you're going to teach, history. The guy doesn't even know about history. She doesn't even know about history, but she has to learn about, enough to teach this one book, right? She doesn't even have any interest in it. Nothing. So don't be surprised that teachers totally suck ass, because it's like until now you just needed teachers to fill classrooms so kids can come in and there's a book and they follow it. And this is why this is why education is so shit. You have these teachers who barely know what they're talking about, teaching things they don't have any motivation for. They don't have any drive. They don't study. They don't improve themselves. But it's now being unmasked as we're comparing quality teachers, the top teachers, who are giving away their lectures for free. And what you're finding is, what you're having now is teachers all over the world watch these lectures because they're like, holy shit, I'm like a terrible, I don't know shit about what I'm wrong like 90%. I got to watch these guys. And so it is having good benefit in this case, because teachers are actually, they know their ass is on the line now. So if anything else, they're like mimicking these guys that they see on MIT. Anybody in the teaching profession knows there's a huge effect of these quality free lectures are having on teachers, both in freaking out and also in the very few, some people actually improving themselves, right? But when it comes to cooking, women and like little, wives out cooking all over the world for guys is the same kind of thing. They're just half-assed. They've read one paragraph. They buy, for a few months, they bought tried a new meal a week, and then that's it. They go into lethargy. They forget what they cooked before. There's no, you know what I mean? Like there's no trying to and it's like I said, it's really complex for me because it's not just the quality of the taste. That does not turn me on. The main thing is the jet fuel. So I need to know what's in a blueberry, right? Right? What is the connection between a beet and a blueberry? So where can I get the thing that turns your tongue purple? Where can I get that the cheapest and put it into the most food because I know it's very good for me? Okay, now garlic, what does that do? And then variety, what do I need? Not just on a one meal variety, right? Variety is difficult because you have to think about it. You have to be disciplined, right? Cooking is discipline, right? And eating, if you want to be healthy, requires discipline. So you have to say, in fact, I might start doing this. I might start writing down what I eat because you need to get variety. It's not about one meal, right? It's just like some really unhealthy person, makes one healthy, drinks a shake or whatever that they think is healthy. And they say, oh, I've done my healthy thing right now. I can go, live the rest of my life, right? It's not about that. It's about long-term, okay? Health is long-term, guys. It's not just today. It's not just one meal. So what did you get for the week? What's the variety that you got, right? This is what you want to think about, even if you're not getting married, right? You have to start to plan, what am I getting? What age am I? What do I need? What vitamins? What has changed, And then how to get all those things in my body so that I don't have to go to the doctor. So I can be healthy. So you know what I mean? So I'm not fighting against the tide, right? So I'm not swimming up the stream, trying to run so hard that I eat off all this bad food that I didn't even realize was bad, right? It's because I've educated myself and I'm disciplined. I'm writing down. I'm making sure that I get the things I need, right? This is one of the most valuable things you can do is focus on getting the right vitamins and nutrition and nutrients in your body at the right time, and always learning and learning what is unhealthy and cutting that out. Sometimes it's very counterintuitive. Like carrots are full of sugar. If you have any diabetics, they'll know that. And cooked carrots even have more sugar. So if you're trying to avoid sugar, you would avoid carrots, right? And so these things are counterintuitive. So it's not that simple. Vegetables are not vegetables, right? It just depends on how deep you want to go into it. For me, I have my whole life and I'm free and I'm single and I'm always going to be single. So I have a ton of time and I have a curious mind. So I'm always trying to go deeper and deeper and deeper into health because this is, I think, one of the biggest, it probably is the biggest thing in your life, right? If you can be rich as fuck, you can have a super hot girl, but if you're unhealthy and it's hard for you to get out of bed and you know what I mean, your breathing is labored, it's just not good. It's just not the same, right? Whereas if you pop out of bed and you feel great and you're healthy, then life just is even the simple things are really awesome, right? So health is the number one thing, and you're trusting your health because when you eat, it's like feeding that rocket. It's imagine a bunch of fucking wives out there making half-ass rocket fuel based on one paragraph, and the rockets are crashing all over the fucking place, right? They're just crashing, blowing up. Guys are super fat, unhealthy, and so many guys they become unhealthy when they get married because the food is just shitty and there's no variety, right? So they're crashing all over the place, and then nobody notices that this is happening, right? And the idea is you live longer if you're married. I've already destroyed that one, but I just, in case you didn't hear the episode, it's the reason why guys live longer when they're married. It's very fucking simple. Think about it. Let's think about what about dogs, right? When you go to the dog store, which dog do you pick? The depressed dog who's sitting in the corner and weak and miserable and unhealthy? No, you're going to pick the healthiest, friendliest, nicest, muscular, good-looking dog that has a good, you know what I mean, good personality, right? Women, that's what they do. They pick the best guy because guys are so desperate to get married that they pick the pick of the litter, the guys with the most money, the tallest guys, the most healthy guys, the good sense of humor. Women are very good at this. This is something, evolution has just attuned them to falsity in guys. And they can see right through your fake stuff, and they pick the good guys. They just cherry pick the guys who went to the best schools, who have the highest intelligence, who are the most ambitious and all that, right? So naturally, these guys lived longest, right? If women went on Skid Row and picked like older guys that were like, homeless and shopping carts, you would see this whole getting married makes you live longer just disappear immediately, right? But that's why, very simple reason why married guys live longer is they're picking the best guys. And the minute, okay, here's the other thing. The minute you fuck up, okay, so you lose money, you go bankrupt, the woman divorces you, right? So like being married makes you live longer. Being married doesn't mean you were married 20 years ago. It means married now, right? You're married now because you're still producing and you're on top of your game and you're providing her with all this money and things and security, and you're doing all this stuff on a continual basis, not just a one-time thing, right? So they're judging you not just on one time, which is very brutal, but also like you got to keep it up, man. It's not just one time. It's for the rest of your fucking life. And if you fuck up, they leave and they go look for another guy, right? So yeah, so I don't know. There's more here. I had more stuff. Let's see, where was it? Okay, one last thing. I know this is getting, some people don't like long podcasts. Other people love them because there's so much depth in them. So I like depth personally. I want to learn. Women are important enough to me, and relationships and understanding life is important enough that I'm willing to listen to an hour-long or 2-hour-long podcast. And I do it all the fucking time. I study my ass off, guys. So this is just my ways. Other guys, they only watch 3-minute videos. Personally, life's complicated. I want to know the truth. I'm willing to put in the hard yard, right? So here's an article. We'll just end on this one. It's Women Can't Cook by a Very Brave Husband. He almost looks like you know what I mean? Like he's like I don't know if that's a brave look. Is that a brave husband look? Just look at that guy. Is that brave? No, that's kind of like you just shit your pants kind of look, right? But let's say what he talks about what does he mean by being brave? Okay, so basically, when's the last time a woman cooked you an excellent meal? Not just a nice meal or plain good meal, a hearty meal, but a piece of cuisine that had you smacking your lips for weeks afterwards. I'll wager that you can't remember, right? Because such a meal has never been cooked by a woman. The truth is, women can't really cook, right? And he goes into all the things, and he goes very specific about his wife. He talks about his wife, right? Cooking is poor. It's a matter of necessity, right? Women see it as a matter of necessity. And you can see that in the women's advice blog that we looked at before. They get one paragraph, right? Learn to cook, try a new meal a week, move on, right? That's the advice you get, right? It's like, what the fuck? How the fuck can a woman learn how to cook from that? Like I said, the 76-year-old woman, she can cook, and she didn't even her. It took 70 years, and she's got a bazillion cooking books that she studies all the time, and her favorite present is a fucking cooking book. Because I know her. It's true. See, even today. And she will fucking read it. If you give her a cookbook, she will look through it and find a good recipe. If it's a good cookbook, she'll look through and she'll find a good recipe, and she'll actually make that exact recipe, and it'll be fucking awesome, right? And that's the level that you need to be a great cook. And like, that's not even, and like I said, I should actually go back to that woman who's the greatest cook at 76, even her doesn't understand bodybuilding and doesn't understand the vitamins and protein and things like that, and that's what kind of frustrating with me, because I actually care about both. I care about the quality of the food, the taste, the texture, the way it looks, all that. And I also, more importantly, care about just the vitamins that are in this particular dish and making sure that it's all right. And I don't want to put down, she's awesome, she's a great cook. I could never be like that. But, at the same time, would I want to be, married to her, she spends a shit ton of money on food. I mean, she spends a shit ton, but you don't need to. To get the same vitamins, you can be much more fucking MGTOW about it, and you can get it cheap, like I talked about before. Blueberries have that thing that turns your tongue purple, and also beets do. Beets are very cheap, exact same vitamin, right? So when you put some beets in a soup, you're going to get a shit ton more than you ever would in blueberries, and it costs you like $1, right? So it's like, all these things I'm always calculating to keep myself healthy, right? And most women either go the way of doing nothing or becoming great cooks, and that has great side effects, right? It's going to be variety, it's going to be all that, but it's also going to be very expensive. And there is that kind of, I've just seen with chefs and really excellent cooks, is there's a kind of a looking down on the way I eat, in a way, because I think of myself as an engine. Now, I appreciate what they do, but they don't really appreciate what I do. And I most of the time, I'm just like rocket fuel. So I'm trying to figure out how to get the garlic in me, the olive oil, the real olive oil, not fake olive oil. There's a lot of fake olive oil out there. And I try to get all these things in me like a rocket, right? And the real chef doesn't really appreciate that because they're on a different, you know what I mean? They're almost like on a different path. It's like the difference between an architect and an engineer, right? You can have a great engineer who can design the interior, the earthquake proof and all that. And then you can have the architect on the outside, but it's very rarely the same person. So that's all it is like when you have the artist on the outside and then you have the hardcore number cruncher, right? I prefer both, right? But if I'm going to choose one or the other, I'm always going to pick the number cruncher because that's more important. Believe it or not, that's more important. The structure of the building, the structure of your body, the structure of your food, the things that you're putting in there are most important. How it looks and the beauty is great, and the taste, and it is very important because just like a beautiful woman will make your dick hard as a rock, and an ugly woman, a fat woman, will like make you not want to have sex and run away the other way. Same with food, right? So as you get older, a good tasting food can kind of entice you to eat when you're not that hungry, or get you to move into, putting that in your body when you maybe don't want to or whatever. So there is, there is like a mixing, and that's why it's, it's like there's the art and there's the science, right? So they're both in there and they're both important. But if I'm going to choose one or the other, go in science, right? Okay. So basically the woman, let's go back to this. The guy's talking about his wife. He just basically makes fun of women. If you want to find this article, I can put it down on there. But if you just go, "Woman Can't Cook by a Very Brave Husband," you're going to find this link. And he just basically talks about, it's pretty, in some ways, it is pretty brave, actually, because he does talk about being a great cook and how poor his wife is at cooking. But now here's the mainstream media. Look at this shit. What is below? His fucking wife. He can't even make an article. If a woman wrote an article about cooking and how bad guys were at cooking, it would just be alone. And it would be like there would be nothing else. But no, a man says something like this, and they have to interview his fucking wife, right? Who can't cook, and she admits it, right? So she goes through it, she talks about it, and the only thing she can say about him that he is a great cook, but basically, she has to praise him too much, she has to he demands when he presented, it's like the Olympic flame, here's my beautiful thing, and you have to appreciate, and he brings it out. Look, let's see here. The food will arrive at the table, she's talking to her husband, would be normally reserved for an Olympic flame, right? So it's like the guy is super proud of what he does, and he brings it out, and here it is, ta-da, and here's the new meal. And she's, the only thing she can basically say is that he's too proud of what he does, right? So this is a really pathetic woman, actually. It really is. It's like she thinks she's being funny, right? She thinks she's being funny with this. To me, it's so lame. It's lame for many reasons. It's lame because the guy finally told the truth that a lot of women can't cook, and he took it on himself to learn. And then the magazine has to include his wife. It cannot be a guy telling the truth. This is why MGTOW is going crazy. The reason why this channel and other channels are going crazy is because Guys are like, fuck, you can't even get this fucking shit out there. You can't learn anything in mainstream media. You have to get to MGTOW to find out what the fuck is going on, right? And it's but when it comes to men and women and relationships and fucking sex and all these things that are super important, right? So this one's about food, and I've never seen a MGTOW about food, but I think food is one of the main reasons why you don't want to get married. Because women suck at cooking, okay? Dig in fucking deep, like I said. If she makes you that one good omelet, find out if she can really cook. Because when you're fucking living with this woman and she's feeding your kids, she's going to feed your kids. If you're getting married, she's going to get pregnant, right? And you're going to have kids. And I've seen so many kids that are fat nowadays. And the reason is because the food that they're getting from the wife is shit, okay? That's usually the reason. And it's not politically correct, but it's the fucking truth. If you had a videotape in her house, you would see her standing there serving some shitty food, taking them to a shitty restaurant, and the kids who don't know better, eating whatever's provided by their mother. And which makes it even worse is whatever you're giving as a kid is something that you get attached to. And I really see it in Thailand because you have German guys here, French guys here, Japanese, Korean. You have all these different guys, mainly guys living here. And you see them going to like a German restaurant. They have this German restaurant. Up on Soy 11, there's a German restaurant. And, I went to eat there a couple times, and it's really half-assed German food. I mean, it's really not great at all. But it looks German inside, and they do have German meals, and they're not that bad. But the thing is that guys are so, this is what they grew up on. So no matter how half-assed it is, it's better for them than eating a hamburger or pad thai, right, every day, right? Because they can imagine what their mother made. They can imagine what they ate when they were a kid, and they can kind of like get nostalgic and eat this food. But you can really see how early indoctrination of food or the introduction of food to kids affects their lifelong flavors, what they like. Because I see a lot of expats here who will order some totally shitty, terrible dish. And it's like the only reason why they order it is because they used to eat it when they're young. So what you provide to your kids is giving them a map for the rest of their lives. So a woman who provides poor quality food without thinking, reading one paragraph before getting married, and perverting one type of new meal, whatever that means, every week for how long, she doesn't say, which cookbook, is she using different countries' cookbooks, you know what I mean? No, it's just a half-ass, try something, girls, basically, go do something and it'll work out, right? It won't work out, and it hasn't worked out, and it doesn't work out, and girls are shitty cooks. And so just like teachers, they're getting, now they're being, showed up by these great lectures online. And it's the same thing with women, is that now with MGTOW, we're like, able to like nail this stuff down. And again, it's not, the reason why this never happened before is because guys just went into marriage so easily. And so, you don't want to like put down your wife. There's no, like I said, there's no reason to put people down. But silently, you can find out the way life is, and then you can make smart decisions as an intelligent man based on that knowledge. And that's what I want you to do. So don't put down your wife, don't put down your girlfriend, but find out what is going on so that you can make intelligent decisions about your health. And if you do want offspring, your kids' health, just as important or even more important than your own health, right? So women don't provide that. At this stage in the game, it's pathetic. It's really bad. And you see a lot of fat kids, unhealthy kids, and that's a direct result of what they're getting fed at home. And everybody knows it. No one can face it. No one gets to blame. It's just like, who gets to blame? McDonald's, right? The big food companies. That's why everybody's so angry. Women are shitty cooks. They don't study. They're not careful. They don't study cooking. They don't study health. They don't, you know what I mean? They and then they blame it on these big companies because the blame has to go somewhere. And the blame is going to go on the companies, not where it belongs. Where it belongs is on the women, the wives. Okay? They're the ones at home. They're the ones cooking. If a guy is at home, exact same thing for him. No difference. If the guy's making the food and he's out there smoking weed all day, doesn't give a fuck, takes him to McDonald's, exact same thing. Fuck that guy, right? Fuck that guy, right? He's evil. He's fucking evil. Feeding kids shitty food is evil, you guys. It's like, what is wrong with you? Would you put your kid into some death race? Would you put him into a dangerous situation in a war zone? Would you feed him food that's going to kill him? No, don't do it. Don't do it to yourself. Don't do it to your kids. And it makes a difference. And you can do it. But the way that you can start to, I guess, get on the right path is you yourself, is you got to get serious about your life as a MGTOW, right? Forget what women part in it, right? You start to study health yourself. You start to study cooking. You start to study vitamins and nutrition and look in all aspects, right? Look at bodybuilders. Bodybuilders are important. They're very important. The reason why, not that they know everything, but is it's difficult to grow muscles like a plant. A guy with a green thumb, a woman with a green thumb is somebody who can make that plant grow. And it's something you can't force. It's something you have to, it's an art to get that plant to really grow. Anybody who grows weed knows there's a huge difference between somebody who really knows how to grow it and someone who doesn't, right? But it takes skill. It takes skill to do that. To grow the muscles, to grow your body is the same thing. You're growing it like a plant. So it's like, in one sense, it's like very scientific, but in another sense, it's like artistic, right? You're trying to get that thing to really put on those muscles, and you can't fake it, right? Unless you inject, some kind of bullshit in your arms, right? So bodybuilders and people who are looking for a direct benefit right now in their bodies have a place in health, okay? And wonderful chefs who, Michelin chefs who cook also have a wonderful place. And vegans know a lot about food. Not that you want to be a vegan, but it's worthwhile to study a little bit about what vegans eat and why they eat it. Because they're studying food. Okay, vegan aside, whatever side on the political scale, forget all that. Okay, they're learning about food. That's important. What did they learn? You want to know that. Guys are curious, right? Break out of this fucking, you're half asleep fucking mode, right? Take control of your life. Take control of your food. This is one of the most important things because women will not do it for you. You need to do it yourself. So I hope I motivated you guys to really go out there and change your life. Be fucking healthy. Be ripped, right? Have the muscles you want, right? Be a fucking animal. Don't be a fucking, where you're just half asleep in life, right? You want to be completely awake and moving forward, helping other guys, and be a fucking animal, MGTOW. That's what it's all about in the end. In the end, it's not about someone else's failure, man. It's about your life, right? Make yourself have a kick-ass fucking life, right? Hope this was good for you, and thank you very much for watching. And again, I'm going to put up a donation link. I don't know if it's going to be Patreon or PayPal, but I'm going to figure it out. I'm having a little bit of, it's the first time, so give me a little bit of time here. But I appreciate any kind of donations. I appreciate all your, the motivation I get from all the awesome comments I'm getting. Fuck, and the views is unbelievable, you guys. It's some of the videos are just going crazy, and it's like, man, I tell you, it's. I know that there's so much out there. Guys need this help, and I just am so glad to be in the middle of this. I can't even think of something I'd rather do. So that's how much I love it. So thank you very much for watching. Ronin Man signing off.